Hey everyone, welcome back to the CARIS Lab. We're going to be talking about chasing Dory today, Gladius's new ROV.
Yeah, so we got the opportunity to test this little guy out and compare it to some of the other ones we've got, namely the Gladius Mini. This guy right here. So as you can see, there's a bit of a size difference. There's a pretty substantial price difference. And our first question kind of out of the box is, how are these different functionally? You know, we probably have to be giving something up for this.
To go from the Mini to the Dory.
How exactly are these different?
So in our unboxing video, Alex pointed out that the Dory actually still has 5 thrusters, so it's vertical ascent and descent capable, just like the Mini. And then 2 at the back, 2 at lights. So, sorry, go ahead.
And the plug at the back, notably this plug is 7-pin, not 4-pin like the Mini.
Yeah.
So it looks the same, but you can't interchange the cables.
So that's one thing we noticed difference-wise, is that you can't plug in the 100-meter tether or the new 200-meter tether for the Mini into the Dory, which kind of limits your exploring capabilities.
Yeah, because the tether for this is 15 meters as opposed to the different lengths available for the Gladius. Namely, I think we have a 100-meter tether for ours.
Yeah.
So you can get longer, but
that might be an upgrade function later on for the Dory.
Yeah.
They might be releasing like a 100-meter cable.
This is mitigated by the fact that they've gone back to the floating buoy style. So if anyone watching this video was a user of the Gladius Pro, they had the floating buoy which you just attach the tether to and toss in the water. Yep. And as long as you don't go beyond Wi-Fi range of the buoy, you're fine.
Well, and to keep you from going beyond Wi-Fi range, they have a little, elastic tether that you can attach to your boat, to your life vest, to your canoe, whatever you're using as a platform, and attach it to the buoy so it doesn't float away on you. It still stays in the water, but you have some range to play around with, which is kind of cool.
So that really helps mitigate the short tether.
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty good feature for open water. But we're testing this. It's November in Northern Ontario, and that means we're not dealing with open water. We are dealing with hard water. So bit of a different scenario for operating there, and it led to some interesting challenges.
Chasing Innovation kind of sent this to us as a beta test, as if you will, for ice fishing potential in either North America, potentially in Canada, and overseas as well. So yeah, we were kind of itching to get it out onto the ice. The Dory runs off of the app called Chasing Dory. It's available on Google Play or iOS or wherever you get your apps from.
So the app is actually pretty interesting. Being used to a hard controller with the Mini, I found it was a bit of a jump, Mostly because they've got this really innovative feature. The joysticks appear wherever you tap them on the app. So you set the controller settings, you have 2 built-in options, and then you can customize the controls however you want. But when you click on the screen, you're in the app, you're looking at the screen, and you click on the screen and your controller appears, and then you can move it, and as soon as you let go, it disappears. So I turned it on and I was clicking through the app. Where are the sticks? How do I get to the sticks? I can customize them, I can choose the settings, but how do I steer? And I can tilt. The tilt control is actually pretty intuitive and it works really well. I like it. It's just a slider bar, so you just slide to the angle you want and it turns there. So I can tilt wherever I want, but how do I move forward? And this went on for an embarrassingly long amount of time until I poked the screen. And actually, I think Ryan pointed out, just touch the screen and the controller appears.
Yeah, so your left stick is on the left side of the screen, and then the left half of your screen, your touch screen, and then the right joystick is the right half of the screen. So wherever you touch on the screen, that's where your joystick appears, and then you just move your thumbs, your fingers, whatever you're using to steer, in the direction you want to go. And it actually works with gloves that have the smart screen material on it, so you can actually use it with gloves too, which was handy for us because we were outside when it was cold / freezing.
Yeah, so that's one thing that I think this is going to struggle with, is if you're using this outside. We were using it in about -3 to +1. That was kind of the temperature range. It's just not that cold yet. It's not -25.
Well,
so
it was, but it warmed back up.
Yeah, we didn't go out when it was -20. Anyhow, if you're using it outside, oftentimes I find those gloves that are conductive cannot handle -25.
No, your hands freeze pretty quickly.
A hard controller would be really beneficial there. But this does avoid the problem of a lot of virtual controllers I've used, that you're looking at the screen, you're looking up at whatever device it is. If you're flying, if you're driving underwater, whatever it is, you look up and you have no frame of reference for the stick. So as soon as you take your thumbs off your screen, you're gone, and you have to look back at your screen to find your sticks again. So they disappear and reappear when you tap within about a second or two. So
I found it was even within like a fraction of a second.
Yeah. It's really helpful for that because you'd never lose your sticks. You just touch your screen and you move.
We did find out though that the Gladius controllers, the yellow hard controllers for the minis, actually tie in to your phone software. So you can use the other controllers from the Mini if you already have it. The same way that you would use like your iPad on the screen. You would just have the iPad Bluetooth to the controller, and then you use the hard sticks, the hard controller, to steer the Dory.
It's a nice feature to have.
It is a way to get around the touchscreen if you don't want to, but we haven't tested it extensively, so I can't really say if the tilt function and the light systems are compatible with the controller, if it's just the steering.
Yeah.
We just tested with the app this weekend, so can't really. We'll give you updates as we go along.
Yeah. This is hopefully the first in a series of videos. Lastly, battery life. Battery life I was really impressed by. We're using it in water that's around 3 or 4 degrees Celsius. I wasn't expecting a lot of battery life. It's advertised as an hour, and we didn't run it solid for an hour, but we ran it intermittently throughout the day without recharging, and whenever we stopped, we just left it in the water, and it actually lasted probably about an hour of operating time.
Yeah, no, it was really good. So, again, we had it tied into the app on my phone, and the thing with the Dory is that as soon as you plug the two pieces together, it's on. It's not. It doesn't shut off. You can't turn it off. There's no off switch. So the way it turns off, quote unquote off, or standby mode, is there's a power button or an unlock button on the screen, and that kicks it back into full operation. But even that, we basically had it plugged in. The Dory was either sitting on the ice or underneath the ice in the water by the fishing holes, and just sitting there when we weren't flying it. And it lasted basically all through the day while we were using it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, so the not having a power button on the buoy I thought was a little weird, not having a way to actually turn it on and off. I thought that struck me as a little strange. I think it does make sense just from a hardening perspective, trying to harden this and make sure you can't get water in anywhere.
Yeah.
I think that does make sense. It was just another thing a design feature that was a little bit strange to me at first, but I think having used it, I agree with it. I agree with the decision.
Yeah, and there's also one thing to charge. You don't have to charge the buoy and the drone. You only charge the drone, right?
Yeah.
And then that powers the buoy. Because you only have a short tether, you're not pushing a lot of power through the line. You're not losing a lot of battery trying to push a signal back and forth. So basically, it can operate just using the one battery. And even still, like we said, it lasted basically all day, either just sitting there on or being used, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I do want to say one thing so far about the app is that the main titles and the main headings and stuff for the app show up in English. So if you go into like the settings mode, there's like the Minecraft, which is kind of like your training area. It has all the training videos. There's the settings, the firmware updates, the problem feedbacks and stuff like that. You can give feedback if you have any issues. There's the gallery in there. But if you go and you click on something and there's like a warning like, oh, it's not available because you're not connected to the device or something, and it gives you a little warning at the bottom of the screen, it shows up in Chinese characters. So if there's any kind of weird warnings that pop up, unless you speak Mandarin, I think, you can't really read what the warning says. So that might be an update coming on the app. But right now, everything else, like all the main features are in English, but the main warnings, the coding is still in Chinese. So
yeah, that would really give it a bit of a sense of polish to the app. So maneuverability was a little problematic underwater in poor light conditions. I think it would be a lot more forgiving if you were in really clear water, but something we've kind of learned during the last few seasons of underwater operation is a lot of water that looks really clear is really not.
Yeah, we're not operating in like the Caribbean where you can see hundreds of meters in open water. We're in very silty water.
In Lake Superior, sometimes you can get really clear conditions. There are some lakes where you get really clear, but a lot of lakes where we want to operate are really silty, and that means even a tiny motion can throw you off.
I mean, we're restricted with the 15-meter tether, so we can't really go that far, especially if we're tied to a hole in the ice, if we're ice fishing. Again, we're kind of limited to the amount of area we can explore. But the Dory itself, because it only has two little thrusters at the back, I don't know about you, but I kind of found it a little underpowered, trying to pull its tether along underneath the ice. But that might just be a function of being under the ice.
And the lack of tether management was another problem with this. It doesn't come with a spool as the Mini did and as the Pro did. So when you go to unspool, your choice is kind of to just throw the whole tether out there at once, and it tends to coil up a bit and catch on things. Yeah. So that is a concern to me, because the tether floats, but I'm concerned where there's a situation you're looking at, say, a beaver house, and you swim in and then you start to back up and your tether goes slack behind you and maybe coils a bit, and all of a sudden you're in a bunch of sticks and you have a coiled tether and your tether snags.
So overall, I really enjoyed the Dory. I think it's a really good tool. The app itself is really intuitive, and it's actually really easy to drive, because you're looking at the screen and you're basically pointing in the direction you want to go. And like Luke was saying, if you have to look up at the device or look elsewhere for the device, you're losing reference to your inputs. But because the inputs are right on the screen and you're watching the video as you're steering, it's really intuitive for someone to pick up and drive it right away. There's not a lot a steep learning curve to it. It's really hands-on, excuse the pun, and really easy to learn to drive. But yeah, so I think we're just gonna quickly get into our basically top 5 pros and cons of the Dory compared to the Mini, and we'll call it a day, I think. Cool. All right, Lou.
So first thing's easy to maneuver, easy to tilt. It's easy. You can just open up the app, turn it on, and go.
And it works, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, the tilt function is really impressive actually compared to the Mini, because the Mini, you had that rotary dial on the side of the controller, and it's not responsive as responsive.
It tilts very fine increments.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of lag time with the screen, so oftentimes we run into you click it and nothing happens.
Yeah.
And you click it again and then it tilts twice.
Yeah.
The long-lasting battery is great. No other real comments to make about that other than we like it.
Yep.
The Mini controller, the fact that there's a bit of cross-compatibility there and you can use the controller you already have, that's a big plus.
And then they've gone back to the floating buoy as well, which is kind of nice too, because then you're not landlocked or you're not worried about getting your Wi-Fi buoy wet on the Mini, right? Because it doesn't float.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been a bit of an issue with the Mini is we've got the setup here, but the setup needs to be tied to the thing that's in the water, but it can't get wet.
Yeah.
It can't get wet. Get that away from the edge of the dock.
Yeah, you're always worried worried about getting that buoy wet. All right, so some of the downsides, again, not really bad things about it, but like issues that could be improved potentially, or kind of restrict the use of the Dory. Again, short tether. I understand why they went with a short tether. It's useful. But for ice fishing, especially in our areas or the neck of the woods where we get 4 or 5 feet of ice, that takes off 2 or 3 meters of use, and we're down to like 10 meters basically of flying area radius with the Dory. So like for our use case, it's kind of restrictive that way. It is not hands-free. Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so that was the biggest sole issue I had trying to do two things at one time is to use it for ice fishing. If you want to look at, say, your lure and see if there's a fish near your lure, I can drive up to my lure and look at it. But as soon as I let go, the movement of the water starts to carry me away, and I can't fish and operate this at the same time. I can't monitor what's going on and interact with any kind of fish down there at the same time.
Yeah. So yeah, that kind of leads into my next point, is that there's no like mode change. So on the Mini, you could go between like stabilize mode, tilt, lock, and they're kind of like their free fly mode that the Pro had. But on the Dory, it's basically low and high, or like, grandma speed versus Ferrari speed on the Dory, as much as that short tether will get you. But there is no like stabilize mode. There is no adjust like other settings.
Yeah, so those would be really helpful to deal with that problem.
And then the last point that somebody might be concerned about is that the lights are not adjustable. So they're either on or off. There's no light adjustment setting as the Mini has. The lights aren't as bright, so you don't have that light speed effect, or as much of a light speed effect when you're flying or driving under the water. But
I think in deep water that might be a concern for some people, but you're
you
not
can't,
getting to deep water.
Yeah,
anyway,
you
so
can't
it
get to
doesn't
deep
matter.
water for this one. So like having that super bright LED light on the front, kind of not a huge issue. But like if you're exploring shipwrecks near the shoreline or something, or like looking at coral or something in the Caribbean, and you want to get a really good photo or video of it, lighting might play into that a little bit. But again, for the use cases that this is designed for, I don't think that's going to be a big of an issue.
And just to give a bit of disclosure here, we got all this stuff for free just for the purposes of testing it. I think we've done a pretty unbiased review.
Yeah, we're going to be doing more tests. Definitely Luke's going to be doing a lot more ice fishing this winter. So we'll be thoroughly testing the device in cold weather conditions. It does say in the manual I just saw that it only is designed for minus 10 degrees Celsius weather.
Well, water doesn't go to minus 10 anyway, so just don't have it in the air.
Yeah, we'll go from directly back to the water. All right. Yes. So thank you, Chasing Innovations, for sending us the Dory. We're gonna definitely be putting it to use. Make sure to subscribe to our channel here, and we'll have lots of other videos coming out soon.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Catch you later.